Alex Carter used to believe he was good at managing his time. At 38 years old, he was a successful project manager for a mid-sized tech company in Austin, Texas. Alex's days were jam-packed, balancing deadlines at work with the chaos of raising two young kids, Emma and Tyler, alongside his wife, Rachel. Their cozy suburban home was filled with laughter, school projects, and the constant hum of activity. But for Alex, it was also a place where his to-do lists seemed to multiply overnight. From the moment Alex woke up to the blare of his alarm at 6 a.m., his mind was already racing. He'd grab his phone, scrolling through emails while downing his first cup of coffee. By the time he walked into his company's open plan office, he had already mentally mapped out his day: meetings, client calls, project timelines. But no matter how efficiently Alex worked, the clock always seemed to move faster than he could. For Alex, life had become a blur of competing priorities. At work, he was the go-to guy for handling high-pressure projects, and he took pride in being dependable. But being dependable came at a cost. He found it nearly impossible to say no. When his boss asked for updates on multiple projects simultaneously, Alex would nod, adding another task to his plate without hesitation. At home, Alex tried to be the kind of dad who was present for his kids. But the reality was that he often found himself distracted, his mind preoccupied with the next day's deadlines. His evenings, meant for family time, would dissolve into an endless loop of mentally replaying conversations and strategizing how to make the next day work. Even on weekends, the idea of truly relaxing felt foreign. When Rachel suggested they take the kids to the park, Alex would join them physically, but his mind remained tethered to work. Should I have said something differently in that meeting? What if I don't finish that report on Monday? The guilt of not being fully present compounded his stress. The tipping point came on a Thursday evening. Alex was supposed to attend Emma's school play, an event she had been excitedly talking about for weeks. He'd promised her he wouldn't miss it, but as Alex was about to leave the office, his phone buzzed with a call from his boss. There was a problem with one of their major clients, and Alex felt he had no choice but to stay late and fix it. By the time Alex arrived at the school auditorium, the play was over. Emma's face lit up briefly when she saw him, but her expression quickly shifted to disappointment. "You missed it, Dad," she said softly, clutching the bouquet of flowers he'd brought as an apology. Alex's heart sank. No amount of explanation could erase the hurt in her eyes. That night, Alex lay awake in bed, replaying the moment over and over. He felt trapped in an endless loop of obligations. The harder he worked, the more it seemed like time slipped through his fingers. He wanted to be there for his family and excel at his job, but no matter how hard he tried, he felt like he was failing at both. Alex began to worry about the long-term consequences of his overloaded schedule. He could already feel the strain on his relationships. Rachel had started to make comments about how he was always checked out, and Emma and Tyler were growing accustomed to his absence. Even his own health was suffering. He often skipped meals, relied on caffeine to get through the day, and ignored the persistent tension in his shoulders. In quieter moments, Alex imagined a future where his kids barely knew him, where his marriage had become a partnership of logistics rather than love, and where he was too burnt out to enjoy the fruits of his labor. The thought terrified him, but he didn't know how to break the cycle. Every attempt to catch up only seemed to put him further behind. One evening, after a particularly stressful day, Alex found himself scrolling through his phone aimlessly. He came across an article titled "Why Time Feels Like It's Never Enough and How to Take It Back." Intrigued, he clicked on it. The author, Dr. Vincent Vale, described the concept of time scarcity, the belief that there's never enough time to accomplish everything we need to do. As Alex read on, he felt an odd sense of relief. The article described his life with unsettling accuracy, the constant pressure to do more, the guilt of leaving things unfinished, and the feeling of being stretched too thin. But what struck him most was a single line. Time scarcity isn't about how much time you have, it's about how you perceive and prioritize it. Dr. Vale's words stuck with Alex. For the first time, he began to wonder if the problem wasn't his lack of time, but the way he was approaching it. At the bottom of the article was a link to schedule a consultation with Dr. Vale. Without overthinking it, Alex clicked the link and booked an appointment. Alex arrived at Dr. Vale's office on a bright Monday morning, his mind racing with doubts. Was therapy really the answer? Could talking to someone about his time struggles actually change anything? He sat in the waiting room, tapping his foot nervously, until Dr. Vale appeared, a welcoming presence with a warm smile and a calm demeanor. "Alex, welcome," Dr. Vale said, extending a hand. "Come on in, make yourself comfortable." The office was exactly what Alex didn't know he needed. Bookshelves lined with titles on mindfulness and productivity, a comfortable couch, and soft lighting that instantly put him at ease. He settled into his seat, unsure of where to start. "So," Dr. Vale began, "what's been going on that brought you here today?" Alex hesitated for a moment, then took a deep breath. "Honestly, I feel like I'm running out of time. No matter how much I plan or work, there's never enough hours in the day. I'm constantly rushing from one thing to the next, and even when I try to relax, my brain doesn't stop. I feel like I'm failing at everything: my job, my family, myself." Dr. Vale nodded, his expression empathetic. "That sounds overwhelming and exhausting." "It is," Alex admitted, leaning forward, "and I don't know how to fix it. I've tried being more organized, using apps to schedule my time, even cutting out things I enjoy so I can focus on what's important, but it's not working." Dr. Vale smiled gently. "You're not alone in feeling this way, Alex. Many people struggle with the belief that they need to do more to feel in control. But sometimes the problem isn't what we're doing, it's how we're thinking about time." Over the next few sessions, Alex and Dr. Vale worked to unpack his relationship with time. Through guided reflection and open conversations, Alex began to see how his upbringing had shaped his current habits. Growing up, Alex's parents had emphasized the value of hard work above all else. His father, a mechanic who ran his own shop, often said, "If you're not working hard, you're falling behind." His mother, a school teacher, juggled lesson planning, household chores, and PTA meetings with an unrelenting drive. As a child, Alex absorbed these messages, equating busyness with worth and productivity with success. "I guess I've always felt like if I'm not doing something, I'm wasting time," Alex confessed during one session. "And wasting time feels wrong, like I'm letting everyone down." Dr. Vale nodded thoughtfully. "That belief, that you always have to be doing something, is what we call time scarcity mindset. It's the idea that there's never enough time to accomplish everything, which creates a constant sense of urgency and guilt." "That's exactly how I feel," Alex said, his voice tinged with relief at finally naming the problem. "But how do I change it? Time doesn't slow down just because I want it to." "True," Dr. Vale agreed. "But what if the issue isn't time itself, but how you prioritize it? What if it's not about doing more, but about doing what matters most?" Dr. Vale introduced Alex to the concept of intentional living, aligning how he spends his time with his core values. To start, he asked Alex to identify the things that truly mattered to him. Alex's list included spending quality time with his family, excelling in his career without sacrificing his health, pursuing his passion for photography. "That's a solid foundation," Dr. Vale said. "Now let's compare that to how you're actually spending your time." Alex quickly realized that much of his day was consumed by tasks that didn't align with his values. Responding to emails that could wait, attending meetings with no clear purpose, and taking on extra responsibilities out of guilt or fear of disappointing others. Recognizing this was one thing, changing it was another. When Dr. Vale suggested time blocking to protect his priorities, Alex balked. "What if something urgent comes up, or people think I'm slacking off because I'm not available 24/7? Dr. Vale smiled. "That's a common fear. But here's the truth. Setting boundaries around your time doesn't make you less productive. It makes you more focused. When you say no to things that don't matter, you're saying yes to the things that do." Despite his skepticism, Alex agreed to try time blocking for 1 week. He scheduled uninterrupted family time every evening from 6 to 8 p.m., set boundaries around checking email, and carved out 2 hours on Saturday morning for photography. The first few days were uncomfortable. Alex felt a nagging sense of guilt during his blocked-off family time, worrying about the work piling up. But as the week went on, something unexpected happened. He felt lighter, more present. For the first time in months, he enjoyed dinner with his family without the distraction of his phone, and he captured stunning photos of the sunrise without feeling rushed. During their next session, Alex admitted, "I didn't think it would work, but it actually felt good, like I was finally in control of my time instead of the other way around." Dr. Vale nodded. "That's the power of intention. When you focus on what truly matters, you free yourself from the endless cycle of not enough time." 2 months into his sessions with Dr. Vale, Alex was starting to feel a shift. He wasn't cured of his time struggles. After all, the demands of life hadn't changed, but he was learning how to manage them more effectively. He'd begun to honor his time-blocking commitments, communicate his boundaries more clearly, and prioritize what truly mattered to him. Then came the real test. It was a Wednesday morning when Alex's boss, Michael, approached him with a new project. The company had just landed a major client, and Michael wanted Alex to lead the team handling the rollout. The deadline? 3 weeks. The stakes? High enough to make Alex's stomach churn. "You're the only one I trust to manage this, Alex," Michael said. "I know it's a tight timeline, but I'm confident you can pull it off." Alex felt a familiar mix of pride and panic. The old Alex would have nodded immediately, taking on the challenge without a second thought. But the new Alex, the one who had spent weeks with Dr. Vale unpacking his time scarcity mindset, paused. "I'll need to think about how to approach this," Alex said. "Can we meet later today to discuss resources and timelines?" Michael looked surprised but agreed. That afternoon, Alex sat at his desk, staring at a blank page in his notebook. His instincts told him to dive into the project headfirst, sacrificing his evenings and weekends to meet the deadline. But he knew that wasn't sustainable. Not for him, not for his family, and not for the quality of the project itself. He remembered Dr. Vale's advice. Time is a tool, not a tyrant. Use it to work smarter, not harder. Alex began outlining a plan that aligned with his values, setting realistic expectations with his boss, delegating tasks to his team instead of trying to do everything himself, protecting his family time and personal well-being even during high-pressure periods. When he met with Michael later that day, Alex was nervous but resolute. "I'm honored you trust me with this project," he began. "But to deliver the best results, I'll need to make sure we're setting ourselves up for success." He proposed adjusting the timeline slightly and redistributing some responsibilities among the team. To his surprise, Michael was receptive. "I hadn't thought about it that way," he admitted. "Let's rework the schedule and get the team more involved." For Alex, this conversation marked a turning point. By advocating for his needs and setting boundaries, he not only avoided burnout, but also earned respect for his thoughtful approach. Despite the initial success, the project's demands still tested Alex's resolve. One evening, as he wrapped up a long day at work, an email notification popped up on his phone. It was a request from a team member needing clarification on a task. The old Alex would have answered it immediately, even if it meant missing bedtime with his kids. Instead, he paused. He thought about the values he had written down in his journal during his first session with Dr. Vale. "Family comes first." He typed a quick response. "I'll review this first thing tomorrow. Thanks for your patience." Then he put his phone away and headed to the living room, where Emma and Tyler were waiting with a board game. As they laughed and played, Alex felt a sense of peace he hadn't experienced in years. For the first time, he realized that the world didn't stop spinning just because he didn't respond to an email immediately. The project was completed successfully, and the client was thrilled with the results. But for Alex, the bigger victory wasn't the professional achievement. It was the personal growth he had experienced along the way. During his next session with Dr. Vale, Alex reflected on the journey. "I used to think that being available 24/7 made me a good employee and a good dad," he said. "But now I see that being present, really present, is what matters most." Dr. Vale smiled. "That's a powerful realization, Alex. Time isn't something we find, it's something we create. By choosing how to spend it, you've taken control of your life." Alex's transformation didn't happen overnight, but the seeds planted during his sessions with Dr. Vale began to take root in every aspect of his life. He continued to use time blocking, not just for work and family commitments, but also for himself. Saturday mornings became sacred hours for photography, a passion he had neglected for years. At work, his colleagues noticed the change. Alex wasn't just managing his time better, he was leading with clarity and intention. One team member even commented, "You seem calmer lately. It's inspiring to see someone handle big projects without losing their mind." At home, the changes were even more profound. Emma and Tyler no longer saw a distracted dad glued to his phone. Instead, they saw a father who laughed with them, helped with homework, and showed up for school plays. Rachel, too, noticed the difference. "You're finally here," she said one evening as they shared a quiet moment on the porch. Alex squeezed her hand, knowing exactly what she meant. In the months following the completion of the high-stakes project, Alex noticed a profound shift, not just in his schedule, but in his entire outlook on life. The frantic, guilt-laden race against the clock was slowly being replaced with a sense of clarity and balance. Alex no longer felt like time was his enemy. Instead, he saw it as a resource, something he could manage intentionally rather than be managed by it. At work, Alex continued to lead his team with the same skill and dedication that had always defined him. But now he approached his role with greater focus and healthier boundaries. He learned to delegate effectively, recognizing that sharing responsibility didn't mean relinquishing control. In fact, his team thrived under this new dynamic, with junior employees stepping up to take on greater roles. One afternoon, during a casual team meeting, Alex's colleague Leah said, "I've noticed you've been different lately. In a good way, it's like you're still on top of everything, but you're not so stressed anymore. What's your secret?" Alex smiled. "I stopped trying to control everything. I started focusing on what really matters, and I let the rest fall into place." At home, the transformation was even more evident. Alex had reclaimed his evenings as family time, blocking off his calendar from 6 to 8 p.m., without exception. Dinner was no longer rushed, and he often found himself lingering at the table, laughing with Emma and Tyler about their day. He even started coaching Tyler's little league team on weekends, something he had always dreamed of doing but never thought he'd have the time for. One Saturday morning, Alex dusted off his camera and took the family to a nearby park. While Rachel and the kids explored a nature trail, Alex captured candid shots of them laughing and running through the tall grass. Later, as he flipped through the photos on his laptop, he felt a deep sense of fulfillment. He realized that he wasn't just spending more time with his family, he was present in those moments. For years, he had believed that time was the problem. Now, he understood that it was his relationship with time that had needed to change. Emma, watching over his shoulder, grinned. "Dad, these pictures are awesome. You should take more of them." Alex chuckled, ruffling her hair. "I think I just might." Dr. Vale often thought about Alex's journey as a prime example of the power of intentionality. During a workshop on time management for corporate professionals, he shared Alex's story. Anonymously, of course. "We often think the problem is time, that there isn't enough of it, that we're constantly falling behind," Dr. Vale said to the room of executives and managers. "But the truth is, time hasn't changed. What's changed is how we use it. We've become so focused on doing everything that we forget to ask ourselves what really matters." He highlighted Alex's key breakthroughs, shifting from a scarcity mindset to one of abundance, setting boundaries that protected his priorities, and embracing the idea that perfection wasn't necessary to succeed. Alex learned that saying no to certain things isn't a failure, it's a choice, Dr. Vale continued. When we focus on what's truly important, we don't just manage our time better, we reclaim our lives. Dr. Vale turned to his audience, offering them a challenge. Take a moment to reflect on how you're spending your time. Are you aligning it with your values, or are you letting outside pressures dictate your choices? What's one thing you could change today to create more balance in your life? He encouraged them to start small. Identify one activity that feels like a drain on your time and consider whether it's truly necessary. Schedule a block of time for something meaningful, whether it's family, self-care, or a personal passion. Practice saying no to commitments that don't align with your values, even if it feels uncomfortable at first. Remember, Dr. Vale concluded, time isn't something we find, it's something we create. And when we create it with intention, we find that there's always enough for the things that matter most. Alex's story resonated deeply with those who heard it, inspiring them to rethink their own relationship with time. For Alex, the transformation wasn't about perfection, it was about progress. He had learned that time scarcity was a mindset, not a reality, and that by focusing on his priorities, he could live a life filled with meaning and connection. Rachel summed it up best during a quiet evening on their back porch. "You're different now," she said, sipping her tea. "But it's not just that you have more time, it's that you're here, really here, and that makes all the difference." Alex squeezed her hand, his heart full. For the first time in years, he felt like he wasn't just surviving, he was truly living. Dr. Vale ended the story with a simple yet powerful question for viewers. If you could change your relationship with time, what would it look like? What would it feel like to finally have enough? He encouraged them to take the first step toward reclaiming their time by reflecting on their priorities and making one small, intentional change. Time will always keep moving, Dr. Vale said with a gentle smile. But you have the power to decide how to spend it. Choose wisely and choose what matters.